X-Men 97 has come to an end, and it's time for Season 2 predictions. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Let's get into it. So we ended the season with the X-Men in time displaced locations. But before we get to that, we need to get to what's happening in our present time on Earth. So Bishop, Forge, Jubilee, and Sunspot have seemingly not been the only survivors of... They've seemingly been the only survivors of the X-Men. But Forge looks like he's recruiting more X-Men. And on his list of recruitees, these are the, from most to least, the people that I think are most likely to join. So, most likely I think is Emma Frost, especially to the surprising amount of screen time she got last season, with her diamond transformation and being on the council for Genosha. I think that's definitely setting up some dynamic in the future for her to join the X-Men. Then we have Exodus. I think because it's an apocalypse season, it's pretty likely that Exodus would be on the team. However, something's holding me back because I can't really see him joining the X-Men. Then we have Havoc. I think it'd be pretty cool to have Havoc. That's all I have to say. Then we have Iceman, because Iceman was brought up various times during Season 1. And it'd be cool to have him back. Then Colossus. So Colossus, and all the pictures that we see of him when Morph transformed into him, and the picture on the bulletin board that Forge uses, in all of those pictures, Colossus is wearing his X-Men uniform. And as we know, in the anime series, Colossus never wears that uniform, so it leaves us to believe that Colossus has joined the X-Men in the past and will now do so in the future. Same thing with Ileana. She also wore her X-Men costume in the X-Men 97 show, but never did in the original animated series. So it'd be cool to see the two of them, Colossus and Ileana. Then we have Kitty. I think it'd be cool to see Kitty Pryde with Ileana in their dynamic. Then finally we have Dust. Can't really see it happening. She's a little lesser known of a character, but who knows? It seems like Beau DeMaio loves to bring lesser known characters in. Also, just to be clear, Beau DeMaio was, even though he was fired before Season 1 premiered, he did do the writing for Season 2 prior to that. So, Season 2 will still be written by him. It's Season 3, which has been greenlit already, that will not have him in it. But then, that team, I think at least a few of them will be on that team. And I think we'll see them dealing with the aftermath of the whole Tolerance's extinction story arc back on Earth, or in the present, while the main X-Men are doing things in the past and future. Then we get into the time travel stuff. So first let's start off with Egypt. So if you somehow don't know by now, the person that they met in the desert was Apocalypse. And Apocalypse seems like he's going to play a major role in this season. So I'm assuming that while the main team, the present team, maybe even fights Apocalypse in the present, they'll be maybe working with Apocalypse in the past. And it'd be really cool if, while they were talking to Apocalypse in the past, in the present, Apocalypse is like remembering all this happening in his head. Like, oh, I remember I met the X-Men in the past. I think that'd be really cool. And as always, the team that are in Egypt is Nightcrawler, Rogue, Charles, Beast, and Magneto, which would be a pretty cool team. Then in the future, we see Jean and Scott. They meet Ascani along with Nathan Summers. There's two ways they could do this. One way, they could have Nathan Summers just grow up to be Cable, normal stuff. And then the other way is have Nathan Summers grow up to be X-Man. And if they do that, it's definitely a choice. X-Man isn't that popular, and he doesn't have that many like good stories to tell, but who knows, maybe they'll change it in this series. But there are two characters that we don't know where they went, which those characters being Morph and Wolverine. Now, I think it'd be cool if they were also in the future with Scott and Jean, and that would play out very well with Wolverine, and Wolverine obviously is in love with Jean Grey, and Morph seems to want Logan. So that would be a cool dynamic with the four of them. And also, if you don't know Ascani, I forgot to mention this, she's basically a long distant relative to Scott and Jean. I forget who it was. I'll have it up on here. It might have been, was it Rachel Summers? If so, they're not that distant. It's their daughter, but I'm not really sure. But on to the post-credit scene that we saw. Apocalypse in the present day seems to be forming the Horsemen of Apocalypse. Now, this is a scene where Apocalypse picks up one of Gambit's cards, and I don't know, it seems like he's gonna make a Gambit a Horseman of Apocalypse and revive him in that way. So, my theory is that Gambit is going to be the Horseman of Death since he died. But here's some other cool characters. I think it'd be cool if these characters were Horsemen of Apocalypse. So obviously we have Archangel. He's basically the most well-known Horseman of Apocalypse. I think it'd be cool to see him in that role again. And even he's usually the Horseman of Death. I could see them changing him to being the Horseman of War. And then two other ones, they can really be Pestilence or Famine. It doesn't really matter. I think it'd be cool to bring Madeline back and have Scott and potentially Cable fight Madeline. And then Leech would be cool. Because just imagine Magneto having to face off against Leech, and Leech not really being under his own control. And remember, Magneto promised a better future for Leech, only for him to die in Genosha. And I think that'd be really cool. Also, side note, I think it's awesome that Leech is getting this much publicity and screen time. The first X-Men comic I read was Fantastic Four and X-Men, versus X-Men. But the first actual solo X-Men comic I read was The Mutant Massacre, which came right before that miniseries. And Leech was a big part of it. And he's always been in, around the X-Men for me, and he's been a lesser-known character, and I'm glad he's finally getting the spotlight he needs. But those are my theories for X-Men 97 Season 2. And real quick, thank you to everyone who worked behind X-Men 97, not only for making a great show and a great adaptation of X-Men, but also every single video on X-Men 97 that I've made thus far has reached my top 10 most viewed videos. And out of my top 10 most viewed videos, 50% of them are about X-Men 97. So I'm really hyped for that. But anyways, guys, have a great day. Like and subscribe. Our goal for this year is 80 subscribers. We're at 60. All we need is 20 more. Hey, I forgot about Storm. So that kind of puts a wrench in my whole idea about Morph and Wolverine joining Jean and Cyclops. My new theory is, as you guys know, Storm previously lived or grew up in Egypt. Who else is from Egypt? Apocalypse. So I believe that Storm, Morph, and Wolverine are going to be transported back in time to Egypt. Not as far back as the other X-Men did, but as far back as Storm's childhood is going on. So we'll kind of explore her backstory and stuff like that through that. So there's my little theory for them. And yeah, like and subscribe. Bye.